Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here today. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to have a little bit more of a less scripted, off the cuff sort of conversation about something that has been out on my mind more and more lately, not least of which because it's come up a few times over the last month or so. Most recently this morning, which is actually what's prompting me to release this video now, or at least try and record it. We'll see if it actually turns out good enough to get posted. But what I wanted to talk about was trust in the real estate industry in general, and particularly in Ontario. And I think as a platform to do that, I want to talk about what's probably the biggest story, at least in Ontario and probably in Canada over the last while, that has to do with the real estate industry and painting it not in a good light, because I think this is a good part of the reason. Stuff like this is a good part of the reason why some people feel the way they do about real estate agents. So most of the agents that I have met over the course of my 5 to 6 year career are really, really good people. They're trying to do the best they can. They're true professionals. They really, really care about their buyers and sellers that they're working with. And they're just trying to do a good job and make a good living for their families. But there are some, and these are the people that usually get the media attention, that do things that are unethical. You're going to get those in any industry. But what I wanted to talk about today is an issue with not just individual real estate agents, it's with the regulator. It's with RECO, the Real Estate Council of Ontario, which is an administrative body that is supposed to oversee all of the realtors in Ontario, including things like ethics concerns and discipline and that sort of thing. And this story we're going to talk about, which is the story of iPro Realty, if you haven't figured it out yet, which is a brokerage in Toronto, is all about RECO basically failing in its duty to maintain the standards of our industry. And I think failures like this, especially when they're widely publicized like this, as they should be, erode trust in real estate agents in general. So for those who don't know, iPro Realty was a brokerage in Toronto. It no longer exists, but it was a brokerage in Toronto where the trust account, which is the account where buyer deposits, amongst a lot of other funds, are stored, was basically used as a slush fund by the two brokers, the two heads of the company. And the story I'm going to scroll through today, and I'll read a few parts of the story, but mostly I wanted to talk about the scandal in general, was released on November 28th, so just under a week ago, and it's talking about the Ontario government appointing an administrator to take over RECO because RECO failed to do its job. And I wanted to go quickly to the timeline of how the iPro scandal unfolded in order to explain why that's happening. And it's really in these first couple lines here. So the timeline of the RECO scandal was May 19th, 2025. The Real Estate Council of Ontario was first notified by iPro of a financial shortfall in its trust accounts. So this actually seems nice, right? Like iPro is proactively informing RECO that, hey, there's a shortfall in our accounts. What is missing here is that it was in advance of a scheduled inspection. So RECO was going to be coming to check that trust account like a few days later. But anyway, they found out on May 19th, the Real Estate Council of Ontario find out that $10 million of client money and agent commissions, money that's not supposed to be touched, is missing. On August 14th, almost 3 months later, that's when they publicly announced that there's an issue with iPro's trust account. And then on August 19th, it all starts to happen pretty quickly from there. The branches close. And then a couple days after that, or a few days after that, they freeze all of iPro's accounts to make sure that the funds that are still in there are protected. But the biggest issue here, to me, May 19th to August 14th, what's going on? Like, what's going on in there? You find out that $10 million of client money is missing, and then 3 months later, you tell the public about it. And this is an administration that's supposed to be protecting consumers by regulating real estate agents. We'll get back to that timeline in a second, but that was the main part that I wanted to cover. So Jean Lapine was appointed the administrator to take over RECO on December 1st. So that was a few days ago now. It's December the 4th when I'm recording this. The Ford government announced on Friday it appointed an administrator to take control of RICO following an independent audit into the real estate regulator's handling of what it describes as iPro Realty's misappropriation of funds, which is putting it mildly. The announcement comes after Stephen Crawford, Ontario's Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery, gave RICO 2 weeks to respond to concerns being raised with the regulator's practices, processes, and procedures. On Friday, Crawford shared a letter to RICO on social media stating decisive action needed to be taken to prevent serious harm to the public interest of the to the interest of the public and consumers. I think that ship has sailed. Anyway, so we can scroll through the rest of this. Basically, they appointed an administrator to take over RICO largely because of that gap we were just talking about. Like, this was not handled properly. The Ontario government is stepping in to restore consumer trust. Now, the second part of the story that I wanted to get to, let's see here. Yeah, RICO spokesperson says we're going to work with the administrator, yada, yada. There's something that's happened between when I'm recording this and when this article was released that I'll get to at the end. But what the spokesperson and what the board has to say here is going to end up not mattering too much. This is the part that frustrated me the most, though. The chair of RICO's board of directors acknowledged the seriousness of the iPro matter and the impact on consumers and realtors. In an independent study by Dentons, which is a big lawyer firm in Toronto, they found that iPro told RICO that its trust accounts had a $10 million shortfall in May, as we just discussed, but the register did not freeze or monitor the accounts for nearly 3 months. In an update in August, RICO said the shortfall had been reduced to less than $8,000. Yeah, I bet they were scrambling to cover that shortfall. Why did you give them 3 months to do that? She said RICO took swift and decisive action when it became aware. Swift and decisive action. 3 months. Not swift, not decisive. A little bit decisive 3 months later, but I think it happening in a reasonable amount of time is part of what makes it decisive, and I don't think you can say with a straight face that happened. Now, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in the article here, was just this kind of dialogue and these statements released by RICO. And the thing that happened just a couple of days ago that I'm actually very encouraged about is after this guy was put in charge, this administrator, the entire board of RICO was fired. They were let go, which is good. But that happened like 3 months after RICO started doing its investigation. So that's a lot of time where there wasn't really much accountability. There was 3 months between when RICO found out what was going on and when they actually announced it publicly and started really doing anything about it. And then another 3 months that RICO had to figure it out before the government stepped in and was like, we're cleaning shop, get out of here. The public doesn't trust you anymore, rightly so. Now, I think what bothers me most about this story is that this reflects on all of us as agents. And most of us who have been around for a little while know that as soon as you walk into an appointment or you're meeting somebody for the first time, there's some resistance that's there. People don't trust you off the bat a lot of the time, unless it's somebody that knows you or it's a past client or something, and they know you're cool and you're there to help. There's this assumption that the agent's just there to collect a paycheck, to push you into a property or get you to sell your property as quickly as possible and then move on to the next sale. And that we're not honest in what we're doing. And that's something you have to overcome with every client. And then usually once they see what you're doing to help them and you earn their trust, that goes away. But this kind of shit does not help. Headlines like this talking about how the organization that's supposed to be regulating us and maintaining the public's trust in organized real estate and taking to task the people who are not living up to that standard. When stuff like this happens where you don't do anything for 3 months, when you do what I would consider one of the worst things you could do professionally as a real estate agent, which is take money that's in a trust account that doesn't belong to you, to take that and go and spend it on God knows what, and to go kind of softball on that sort of thing until people get wise to it and you basically get caught. That's wild to me. And one of the worst parts about it too is it's either one or both of the owners of iPro Realty. They were on the RICO board of directors up until I think it was 2023. So I don't know exactly what happened, behind closed doors, but the people who were on the board, probably some of them at least, had some sort of relationship with this guy. And like, how as a consumer, how do you not look at that and not walk away with the impression that these realtors aren't very trustworthy? So that's what really bothers me, because trust is very important to me personally, and gaining my clients' trust is something that's really important to me. And stuff like this makes it a lot harder for everybody. Clients, realtors, everybody are rightly upset about it. And I hope they throw the book at these guys. This is wild. And I hope it never happens again. I hope we learned our lesson here. Anyway, thanks for listening to my hopefully somewhat informative rant. Let me know how you feel about this. If you found this format interesting too, let me know. I'll try to make more videos like this. And thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care.